Welcome back. Today we are working on the Waves 1, found on page 10 in the chevron section of the Big Book of Crochet Stitches. And this is what it looks like. It's a really pretty stitch. It could be used as a border, I'd say, of some sorts. It could be used as a scarf. It could be used as like a cuff, like so, a bracelet. It's a tricky bugger, I'm going to tell you right away. So it starts out with 17 plus 1 as the chain multiple. So any multiple of 17 and then add 1 at the end. This pattern was so tricky that I actually had to write it out completely. Yes. So what I mean by that is I had to take and write out each section, each direction in the pattern. So you know how there are repeats, right? So I did put where the repeat starts by indicating it with this star. So you see the repeats, and then I wrote them out so that I could use a ruler and a piece of paper to kind of block off where I was, because I had to do this pattern at least 5 times before I got this right. So let's take a look. Go ahead and get started on doing your multiple of 17 plus 1. So I did a total of 35 chains to accomplish this length. So I did 17 twice, and then I did plus 1. So that gave me 35 chains. Okay, so go ahead and get started with your 17 plus 1, however many you decide. If you want to do 35 for the practice, go ahead and get started on that. Okay, so how I use my written out pattern is with a ruler, and I just basically cover either from the top, so I'll go like this as I go through each step, or from the bottom to show that this is where I am. Okay, so now that you've done your 17 plus 1, with your multiple of 17 plus 1, we're going to go ahead and do the first step, which says to double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, this one right here, I'm going to just do a double crochet. The great thing I love about this pattern is that it is a 1-row repeat once you make it down to row number 3. Okay, now the next step says to cluster over the next 2 chains. So that's going to be over this and this one. We're going to do what is known as the cluster step. And how you do that is you yarn over, insert it into the first insertion point, the first of the 2, yarn over, take off that second piece, and then yarn over and take off 2. So you basically leave the last step on. Then you're going to yarn over, because we're going to start again in the next one, in the next insertion point, the next of the 2, yarn over, take off that second one, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, and then finally yarn over and take off all 3. So that is considered a cluster. Okay. Next one, you're going to do the same thing. We're going to cluster over the next 2. So over this one and this one, yarning over first, inserting it into the next insertion point, the first one, yarn over, pull off the second one, yarn over, and pull off 2. 2 remaining every time for that first part. And then now we're going into the next one. First we yarned over, insert, yarn over, take off the second loop, 4 loops on this time, yarn over, go ahead and take off 2 and 3, and then 3 loops remaining in our last step, which means we yarn over and we take off all 3. Okay, the next step is to chain 1. All right, now we're going to do a double crochet and chain 1 in the next one. So here's our next one, right? We're going to do double crochet and a chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and then same thing in the next one. So we're going to do this for 6 times. Okay, so next one here, so that was once, double crochet, chain 1, and the next one same thing, double crochet, chain 1, and the next one, double crochet, chain 1, and the next one, this is the last and final one, double crochet and chain 1. Okay, so the pattern actually said, well, actually we did that for a total of 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Yeah. So the next step is to cluster over the next 2 chains, and this step we're actually going to do 6 times. So we're yarning over first, clustering over this one and this one. So remember, we always leave a piece back. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, take off the second, 3 loops on, yarn over, take off 2, and we're going to leave those 2 on as we start the next one. Yarn over, going into the next of the 2, yarn over, take off the second one, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, and then now we have 3 loops on, yarn over, pull through all 3, completing the cluster. So that's 1 of 6. So we're going to do that again. Over the next 2, yarning over first, inserting it into the first one of the 2, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 remaining, start the process again, yarn over, going into the next insertion point, yarn over, pull off number 2, yarn over, 2 and 3 are going to come off, 3 remaining, yarn over, pull off all 3, and go ahead and start the process again. Okay, yarn over, we're doing over these 2, we're doing a cluster again, going into the next one, yarn over, take off the second one, yarn over, take off 2, yarn over, take off all 3. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and we have 3 more to go. Okay, working over these 2. Okay, so yarn over, insert, yarn over, take off the second one, 3 loops remaining, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, 2 loops on, yarn over, insert, going into the next one, starting it again, yarn over, take off the second one, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, and then yarn over and take off the final 3. Okay, and that completes number 4. 2 more to go. Yarn over, we're working on these 2. So insert, yarn over, take off 2, 3 loops on, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, 2 loops on. Start again. Yarn over, going into the next one here, insert, yarn over, take off number 2, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, and then yarn over, take off 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and for the final one, final cluster, yarn over, and we're going to go working on these two. Insert, yarn over, take off 2, just the second one rather, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, leave those 2 on, yarn over, starting again, going here, insert, yarn over, take off 2, 4 loops on, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, 3 loops on. Now we know we're at the end, so yarn over, take off all 3. Okay, and then the next step at the end of all those clusters is a chain 1. Okay, now we're going to do double crochet in the next chain followed by a chain 1. Okay, so going right here into this blue one, yarned over first for a double crochet, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 for a double crochet and a chain 1. In the next one, yarn over, and here we're doing the same thing, double crochet, chain 1. And we do this double crochet chain 1 a total of 5 times. So this is number 2. Okay, and we're going to do it again. Number 3. And number again, number 4. Remember to do the chain 1 at the end. Of each one, at the end of each, yeah. So we got down to the last 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 6. Okay. So what we need to do is, it says that we should repeat from star until we have 6 stitches remaining. Well, I have 6 stitches remaining now. So I'm going to go to the steps that are for the end, which which is to cluster over the next 2 chains, and you do that 3 times. Okay, so remember what we did for clustering right here, right? We do it over the next 2, and we just do that a total of 3 times. Okay, so cluster is the yarn over, insert, yarn over, leave on 2, yarn over, pull through all 3. All right, let's do it again. So right here, the last one, I just did 2 here and here, insert, yarn over, pull off the second one, 3 loops on, yarn over, pull off 2 and 3. 2 loops on, leave those on and start again. Yarn over, going into the last space, insert, yarn over, pull off number 2, yarn over, pull off number 2 and 3. 3 loops remaining, yarn over, pull off all 3, and I'm at my end, and then I'll do a chain 2 and turn. Okay, and that is row number 1 complete. You see it's wavy as it should be. All right, next up, row number 2. Okay, row number 2 says that we did our chain 2 and we turn, that we skip the first stitch and we're going to double crochet in the next. So we're skipping this and we're double crocheting here. Okay, for step number 1, skip here, double here. Why? Because those first 2 chains count as a stitch. Okay. And then it says to cluster over the next stitch and the next chain 1 space. Okay, so here's the next stitch, will be our first insertion point. Here's the chain 1 space. Okay, so yarn over first, insert, yarn over, take off the second piece, 3 loops on, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, leave the 2 on, and start the process again. So yarn over, here's the space, so we're going to go in, yarn over, pull out, 4 loops on, yarn over, 2 and 3, and then yarn over and take off all 3. Okay, and we're going to do that one more time. Okay, so it says to do it twice. So yarn over, we're going to go into this stitch and into this chain 1 space. Insert, yarn over, take off the second one, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, leave 2 on, yarn over, start the process again, into the space, yarn over, pull through, 4 loops on, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, 3 loops on, yarn over, take off all 3. Good, and then chain 1. Okay, now the next one says double crochet in the next double crochet. So right here, double crochet in the next double crochet, and then chain 1, and then double crochet in the next chain 1 space, followed by a chain 1. Okay, so we did it in the space. All right, next, again, double crocheting in the next double crochet. Okay, so here's the next double crochet, double crocheting in there, followed by a chain 1. Remember to do that chain 1, super important. And then again, double crochet in the next double crochet in the next chain 1 space, followed by a chain 1. Okay, and then same thing, double crochet finally last time in the next double crochet, and chain 1. Okay, and that's what we have. The next step is a cluster over the next chain 1 space and the next stitch, and we're going to do this twice. Okay, so cluster over the next, over this space and this stitch. Okay, so going into the space, yarning over, pull through, 3 loops on, yarning over, pulling off 2 and 3, 2 loops remaining, yarning over, going into the next insertion point, yarning over, pulling off that middle piece, yarning over, 2 loops off, 3 loops remaining, yarn over, pull through all 3, cluster made. Okay, and we're going to do again the same thing in the next stitch. It says cluster over the next chain 1 space and the next stitch. So here's the next chain 1 space, here's the next stitch. Okay, and you want to go over top of here. Okay, so here's the space, so we yarned over first, insert, yarn over, take it out, 3 loops on, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, 2 loops remaining, yarn over, and go head to this one here, insert, yarn over, take off number 2, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, 3 loops on, yarn over, take off all 3. Okay, second cluster made. Okay, now it says to cluster over the next 2 stitches. So I got my yarn over on already, waiting. So we're going to go do cluster over this stitch and this stitch. Okay, insert. So by now I think you've gotten that cluster part. It gets easier as you go. Okay, take off 2 and yarn over, take off 3. So that's 1 done. And we're going to do it one more time over the next 2 stitches. Okay, so here and here. Starts out with our yarn over, going into the indicated stitch, yarn over, pull off 2, yarn over, pull off 2, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull off 2, 3 loops on, yarn over, pull off all 3. Okay, now we're gonna do, again, we're gonna do 2 more clusters, but this time we're gonna do it over the stitch and the space. Okay, so yarn over, here's the next stitch, cluster, yarn over, space. Okay, and so our final cluster, yarning over first, over the next stitch and the next space. Okay, so yarned over, insert, yarn over, take off number 2, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, leave the last 2, yarn over, next one, same thing, insert, yarn over, take off number 2, 4 loops on, yarn over, take off 2 and 3, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, last cluster for that set. Next, we're going to go ahead and do a chain 1. And so the next step is double crochet on top of the next double crochet with a chain 1 to follow it. Okay, so right here on top of this next double crochet, we double crocheting and then chain 1 and then double crochet in the next chain 1 space, which is here, and chain 1 follows it as well, and then double crochet and then repeat that same thing. Okay, so double crochet on top of the next double crochet, and chain 1, and then do it in that space right there as well, and chain 1, and then finally double crochet on top of the next double crochet and chain 1. So it says that we should repeat from star until we have 2 chains 1 spaces remaining. Well, if you followed the 35 count that I did for my chain row, you should be at your last 2 chain 1 spaces. So this is what they mean. See, there's no other chain 1 spaces. There's 2 left. So we're at the end. And it wants us to do a cluster over this next space and stitch, and then again over this next space and stitch, and then finally a cluster over the last 2 stitches, and that's the end, right? So we're ending with 3 clusters, 1 for these 2, 1 for these 2, and then 1 for these 2. Okay, so going into the space, starting up with our cluster, next one, no chains in between the clusters. Okay, in case you were wondering, no. All right, and then final 2 stitches are going to get a cluster over them. Okay, and that's it, the end. Then we're going to chain 2 and turn, and that's the end of row number 2. And this is what it looks like at this point. Okay, so let's go ahead and start row number 3. All right, row number 3. So we turned our work. It says to skip the first stitch. So we're skipping this stitch and double crocheting in this one. Okay. Then it says to cluster over the next stitch and the next chain 1 space. Okay, so yarning over, here's the next stitch. And here's the chain 1 space. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing again, clustering over this stitch and this chain 1 space. Remember, I yarned over first, insert, yarn over, take off the insertion point, 3 loops on, yarn over, pull off 2 and 3, and leave the last 2 and start the process again. Yarn over, going into the space itself, yarn over, pull the space off, 4 loops on, yarn over, pull off 2 and 3, 3 loops remaining, yarn over, pull off all 3, cluster, complete. After that one, we are going to do a chain 1. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and do double crochet in the next double crochet, followed by a chain 1. So here's our next double crochet. We're going to do a double crochet on it, followed by a chain 1. Okay, and then same thing in the next space. We're going to do a double crochet in the next chain 1 space, followed by a chain 1. And then again a double crochet in the next double crochet, followed by a chain 1. And then again a double crochet in the next chain 1 space, so here, followed by a chain 1. Make sure you do those chain 1s. And then last double crochet on top of the next double crochet right here, and followed by a chain 1. Okay, so we're about to start where our repeat point would be. Okay, and so we're doing a cluster over the next chain 1 space and the next stitch, and we're going to do that twice, over the next chain 1 space and the next stitch. Okay, so over these 2 and then over these 2. All right, let's do it. First, starting out with the space and the stitch, and then once again over the space and the stitch, here space, and here the stitch, 3 loops on, pull through. Okay, now we are going to cluster over the next 2 stitches 2 times. So cluster over 1 and 2, cluster over 1 and 2. Okay, all right, so over these 2 first, cluster, and then last one. I'll go through it again. Yarn over, insert to the first, pull out, 3 loops on, yarn over, pull off 2 and 3, 2 loops on, yarn over, go into the next one to start the process again, yarn over, pull off the insertion point, 4 loops on, yarn over, pull off 2 and 3, 3 loops remaining, yarn over, pull off all 3. Okay. All right. Now we're going to cluster over the next chain 1 space and the next stitch and the next chain 1 space. So this stitch and this space. And we're going to do that twice. It's going to be this stitch and this space. So here, 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 and here. Here, 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 and here. So 1 cluster, another cluster. All right, so let's do that over the next stitch and the next chain 1 space. My insertion point is up right underneath the V. Okay, and again, next stitch and the next chain 1 space. Did that twice. And then after that, we chain 1. And then we're going to double crochet in the next double crochet, followed by a chain 1. Okay, so right here. Okay, so double crocheting. Chain 1. All right, now we're going to double crochet in the next chain 1 space. So here, followed by a chain 1. And then double crochet in the next double crochet, followed by a chain 1. And then double crochet in the next chain 1 space, followed by a chain 1. And then double crochet on top of the next double crochet, followed by a chain 1. So we do that, you guessed it, until we get to the last 2 chain 1 spaces, which we are. Okay, so you would repeat that. If your piece was longer, then you might not be at the last 2 yet. If you did more multiples of 17 than 2, like I did. So going to the steps for the last part of it is similar to before. So we're going to cluster over the next chain space and the next double crochet 1, then cluster over the next chain 1 space and the next stitch for 2, and then cluster over the last 2 stitches. Okay, so 3 clusters. Okay, so a cluster over here, a cluster over here, and a cluster over these. All right. Okay, so I started this with going into the next space that was available, and then here is the space and the stitch going in, and then the final here and here. And then chain 2 and turn. Yeah, and that's it. for the pattern. We repeat row number 3 for the pattern, so you just keep doing that. Yes, yes. Happy crocheting.